IVM.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello and welcome to All Things Policy. I'm Sunila Dikshit and today I have with me Dr. Siddharth Vagulkar, who is the Deputy Head at World Food Programme in the Nutrition and School Feeding Unit. World Food Programme is United Nations' leading humanitarian organization which delivers food assistance in emergencies and works with communities to improve nutrition and build resilience. So, hi Siddharth. Would you mind introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about the work that you do at World Food Programme?
Hi, Sunila. Thanks for inviting me to this discussion. Just to give you a brief background, so hello everyone. I'm Dr. Siddharth. I work as a Deputy Head with the United Nations World Food Programme. So to give you a brief background about the World Food Programme, we are the food aid organization or the food aid arm of the United Nations. Globally, we are well known for our food aid operations during emergencies, and we are present in about 86 countries worldwide. In India, our operations are slightly different, primarily because India is a food sufficient country, and especially because being sufficient in food, the food aid operations were not really required in India. So that is where we changed our strategy a bit. And so now, rather than place of being a food aid organization, we basically work with the government of India to improve, to provide technical inputs for nutritional improvement of their food safety net scheme, which is the Integrated Child Development Services Scheme, the Midday Meal Scheme, and the Targeted Public Distribution Scheme.
That's wonderful. So today, Siddharth is here with us to talk about the nutrition crisis that India is facing in times of COVID-19. Now we all know when the pandemic hit our country, there was lockdown, and due to the sudden implementation of lockdown, the schools were closed, supply chains were obstructed. So definitely the supply of food was also affected. So Siddharth, can you tell us what was the immediate impact of lockdown on Indian population, especially the women and children who belong to poor economic backgrounds?
Sure. So, the lockdown was one period which none of us have actually experienced before, if you were to be very honest with all of this fact. What happened with the lockdown is that all, especially the urban areas, the rural areas, all economic activities were suddenly choked off. Now, what happens with this sudden choke off of economic activities is that, especially in the urban areas, what happens because of the lockdown or say the choke up of these jobs is that there was widespread loss of jobs and incomes. Especially people from the informal sector or especially people from the vulnerable background, from poor people who basically are dependent on their daily wages and daily employment. So suddenly all of these people were faced with a loss in their job. Now, what happened with this loss in the jobs is basically the unemployment rate shot up. And there's a report by the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, which says that it shot up from 8.4% in mid-March to about 23% in the first week of April. That's the kind of extent where we had the unemployment rates go up.
Right.
Especially if you look at the urban areas, it showed to about as high as 30%. Now, as a result of all of this unemployment, you would see the first issue which came up was the migration and the migration of these marginal or daily wage workers or the marginal workers, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
So, with this migration, again, a bigger problem came in, that food and nutrition security issues of these people. And that is where we come in, or that is where a lot of, food and nutrition related issues started cropping up, especially which led to issues such as hunger and malnutrition. We're a country, India is a country which is already prevalent with a high prevalence of hunger and malnutrition. And with the lockdown, what it led to is that the prevalence of hunger and malnutrition increased. And it is kind of actually, because we did not do a study to find out whether the prevalence increased. But yes, of course, going by the figures and the initial reports which have come out, definitely the number of people who were hungry and people who were suffering from malnutrition has increased.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the prevalence of malnutrition is already high in India, and to add to that, the pandemic made the situation worse than it is, right? So UNICEF in the month of May came up with a report that warned that 1.2 million additional children under 5 could die in just 6 months in low and middle income countries due to reduction in routine health services coverage and increase in child wasting. Of this, one of the largest death tolls could be borne by India, projected to touch 3 lakhs. Now, this report came out in May, and it rightly pointed out that due to reduction in routine health services, the malnutrition could increase in children. So, to address malnutrition in India, especially in children, we have programs like ICDS and midday meal programs, right? So, could you tell us how the functionality of Integrated Child Development Scheme and midday meal program was affected? We know that Anganwadi workers were involved in contact tracing and other COVID-19 duties. So, how did that affect their regular duties? Were there any issues with regards to that?
To answer to your question, and I'll also try and explain some of the background to the UNICEF report and why it came up with that statement as well. So, I mean, to give you a brief perspective about that, when I say that there's a high prevalence of malnutrition in the country, and I mean, we have the National Family Health Survey report, which came out in 2015-16. It says that the stunting prevalence in India is about 38%, and about the wasting rates are about 21%. So we already, I mean, say 2 out of the 10 children are suffering from wasting. Say 4 out of 10 children are already suffering from stunting. So, I mean, these children or these target population or say these people, so they are already on the brink of crisis, or say they're already brink on the verge of malnutrition. A little disruption in their food habits or a little disruption in their food availability to them is actually going to push them into severe acute malnutrition. To give you a brief background about what is the midday meal scheme all about and what is the ICDS scheme all about. So the midday meal scheme is basically a flagship program of the government of India, wherein you would have hot cooked meals are provided to the school children who are studying from class 1 to class 8, basically age 6 to 14 years. And this is provided across all government schools. The whole objective or the purpose of providing midday meals is basically to enhance enrollment in the school, retention of these school children back in the schools, and of course attendance, and simultaneously also addressing issues such as nutritional levels among the school children. Now, under the midday meal scheme, basically each child who is enrolled in the primary school, say class up to class 5, is entitled to a hot cooked meal, which basically is prepared from 100 grams of, say, food grains, which may be rice or which may be wheat, some 100 grams of cereals basically. And each child who's studying in an upper primary school, which is class 6 to class 8, is entitled to about 150 grams of food grains per day. And so with that, what happens is basically these entitlements are primarily, and we have the National Food Security Act, which was passed in 2013. So it's not just an entitlement under the midday meal scheme, but the central government or the state government is mandated to provide some of these entitlements to school children. And if they don't provide, there's a law which acts on this. So that is about the midday meal scheme. Similarly, for the Integrated Child Development, which is the ICDS scheme, it's basically, again, as I said, it's again a scheme which was launched in 1975. And it's a foremost symbol of the country's commitment towards the children and pregnant and lactating mothers. And it's, as a response to the challenge of providing, basically, it provides preschool non-formal education on one hand, and also looks to address the vicious cycle of malnutrition, morbidity, and reduced learning capacity and mortality on the other hand. The ICDS caters to, say, children who are 0 to 6 years of age, or 6 months to 6 years of age, and pregnant and lactating women. It is a centrally sponsored scheme, which is again implemented by different state governments and union territories. The whole objective or the nutritional perspective of ICDS is basically bridge the gap between the recommended dietary allowance and the daily intake of the child and the pregnant and lactating women. And that is where the background to ICDS comes in. What happens is that with ICDS and MDM, again, ICDS is mandated to provide hot cooked meals or say supplemented nutrition 300 days of the year. And same case with the MDM as well. And with ICDS, what you provide is you provide a morning snack or basically a breakfast kind of a thing in the form of a banana or milk or eggs or so. And you also provide a hot cooked meal during the afternoon time. And this is usually provided to the children who are 3 years and above.
Right.
And to the younger children, you provide food in the form of packaged food, or you provide food in the form of take-home rations or dry rations, which are basically in the form of food grains. Now, you have to understand the reason that I'm telling you the context or the background with ICDS and NTM is that so that once you're aware about the entitlement, you're also aware with the lockdown what are the likely effect on that. So, I mean, what happened with the lockdown is that all of this suddenly came down. I mean, it was closed. You would be aware that in March, the COVID scenario started worsening. And
Right.
the ICDs, be it the Anganwadis or be it the schools, in most of the states, they were closed by around, say, the second week of March or the latest by the third week of March. Now, with the school closures, what happened is that the children who would receive, say, a hot cooked midday meal in the government school and a child who would receive, say, a hot cooked meal from an ICDS or an Anganwadi center did not receive it any further. Now, to tell you more about this particular thing is that people from the rural households, or children from rural households, or children from even from the urban poor households, the midday meal scheme and the ICDS scheme are one important source of food security at their households. I mean, usually such children would largely come to the school to have that one midday meal in the school because they do not have food to eat in the home. So try and understand that, be it the midday meal scheme or be it the services provided through the Anganwadi. I mean, this is a very important, forms a very important food component in their home and for these children. You would also refer to a report which was published by UNICEF in 2013, which was the Rapid Survey on Children, which basically says that 75% of the beneficiaries which come under ICDS, which come to the ICDS Anganwadi center, availed the supplementary nutrition or were largely dependent on the supplementary nutrition services. So that's the extent to which these services are actually important for the people in there. As I said, with the COVID situation aggravating from, say, March onwards, with the schools closing, what happened is few states, for example, say Kerala in this context. So what Kerala did was that they started distributing whatever food grains were available with them. They started distributing it to their school children. And they gave it away. I mean, they basically said that, okay, don't come to the schools now, but at least we can give you the food grains and you can prepare it at home. That was with Kerala. And it's one state which has experience of dealing with emergencies. So, I mean, they've already tackled some of the Nipah issues and they have experience on, say, an epidemic management. But some of the other states, what happened with them was that there was no guideline, or maybe they were left with, because they say the schools closed on 15th of March, they were left with no guidelines on the schools closed, and children were left, I mean, they were asked to go home, and they were left with no midday meal schemes or with the ICDS. But the central government has been really proactive in that matter, and especially the inline ministries for the ICDS and the MDM scheme, which is basically the Ministry of Women and Child Development and the Ministry of Human Resource Development. They've been very proactive in the sense of coming out with guidances for the state level counterparts. On 20th of March, the Ministry of Human Resource Development came up with a guidance to basically provide food security allowance in accordance with the National Food Security Act, or basically food grains to children, or basically if you do not have food grains, then you provide a food security allowance. And it also suggested to reimburse the cost of the cooking cost, which is provided under the midday meal scheme, which is basically the cost for preparing the food and all. And similarly, with the Ministry of Women and Child Development, as of 30th March, they also came up with their guidelines saying that if you are not able to provide hot cooked meals in the ICDS or the Anganwadi scheme, you should provide the food security allowance in accordance with the National Food Security Act, which basically meant that, again, you provide food grains, or you provide dry rations, or you basically provide the cash entitlement in terms of whatever is the amount that you were supposed to provide to the child in form of food grains or in form of the meals, you reimburse to the child in form of cash, so that they can at least make arrangements for themselves to make some nutritional provisions for them. In India, we have a federal structure. The central government can pass certain guidelines and certain rules and amendments, but it is the states which have to implement some of these things. Again, there were different states which took their own sweet time to also respond to some of these guidances as well. That is where the first challenge came up, especially with the ICDS scheme. Now, say suppose a state came up with the guidance that okay, the central government has given us a guidance as to how to go about during the lockdown. But some states came up with the guidance that, okay, we will ask our Anganwadi workers or we will ask our school teachers to distribute these food grains to these children. And that is where a lot of mechanisms were developed at the state level. Some states adopted the mechanism of door-to-door delivery, wherein the Anganwadi worker or the school teacher had to go to the households of the children and then they would deliver the food grains. Some states adopted the mechanism of vouchers, wherein they would give vouchers to the parents of the children. The parents would then take these vouchers to the fair price shops in the local level or in their vicinity, wherein they would get the food grains from the fair price shop. So, I mean, there were some of these challenges that in some states the Anganwadi workers initially hesitated that, okay, because it's a lockdown situation. And of course, they were also worried about their own concerns as well of being infected. So again, there were some of these hiccups initially, but sooner or later with, say, India making strides in, say, PPE or we developing some of locally developed masks or, say, some of the sanitizers and all of that being developed in India, the distribution of food grains also started. So the first issue was basically wherein the Anganwadi workers or the school teachers had to go to the households and deliver, and basically ensuring a delivery mechanism to ensure that food grains are delivered to the household. Secondly, even if to ensure that food grains were to be delivered to the household, there was another issue was basically around the availability of food grains or basically release of food grains to the ICDS and MDM by the state counterparts and all. So again, availability with the lockdown situation, with trucks not being able to move, only essential services, and again, some states not allowing interstate movement and all of that. So that was again creating an issue regarding the availability of food. The third issue which we faced was that you started distributing food grains to the beneficiaries. You started giving them as per their entitlement. In some states like say Andhra Pradesh or some states like Telangana, they also started distributing eggs because under ICDS, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana also distribute eggs. So egg is a slightly perishable item. So again, if you were to provide eggs or say food grains only once in a month or one time at a month, say if you were to give 25 eggs to a beneficiary, there were issues like no refrigerator is available in the beneficiary's household to maintain the eggs or, the viability of eggs or the shelf life of the egg. So again, there had to be certain guidelines which also were developed by some of these states also to help the beneficiaries or spread the information among the beneficiaries to improve some of the shelf life at home, or how could you plan your supply chain. We also worked with a certain few states on developing some of these guidelines, and the other impact basically on the ICDS team was also around, say, growth monitoring, because growth monitoring is a very important service which is provided by the ICDS team. Now, you have to maintain social distancing, you have to maintain basic hygiene and, hand cleansing and everything during use of some of these equipment. And if one person is using that equipment, the weighing scale or say measurement or tools for measurement of height or so, then you have to clean it and all. So those are some of the operational issues with the growth monitoring. And during the initial days of lockdown, growth monitoring also suffered. But again, slowly and gradually, all states have now come ahead and they're actually also doing some of the activities required from ICDS. And again, in the school domain, if we talk about the midday meal scheme or the school, education or say, conducting classes or regular classes, some of the education aspects were also suffered. And that is when you would see that, because the schools are closed, children are not coming to school. Teachers, even if they are coming, they're not able to teach the children as well. So education-wise, we suffered. But that's something which is not our area of expertise. I'll talk more about the nutrition background of it. Say, if you talk about the midday meals, say issues such as supplementation, because through the school, you also provide supplementation of iron and folic acid tablets, or say, you also provide deworming tablets. Some of these aspects were also suffered because of the lockdown, that you did not have sufficient available stocks of, say, iron and folic acid for the school children. Or maybe even if you had, you could not distribute it to the school children. And slowly and gradually, most of the states have come around and they've now started giving it to the homes of children, and that is when they've also instructed parents to also how to consume and all of that. So some of these issues were faced initially by both of the ICDS and MDM schemes.
Right. So yeah, that provides a lot of clarity. Sitting at home, one cannot imagine the kind of problems that would be prevalent in the logistics and the operational part of these programs, right? So thank you so much for making a lot of things clear for our listeners. So now, how does the World Food Program come into picture? So how is it addressing the COVID-19 crisis specifically in India? Like, how is it collaborating with the government of India?
So as I mentioned that we are technical partners to the government of India for nutritional improvement of the food safety net scheme, which is the IPS, MDM and PDS.
Mm-hmm.
I would summarize our work, especially during COVID, into 5 different areas. So one of them is technical assistance to the different government ministries, or basically the Ministry of Women and Child Development, FSCI, ICT, the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and Ministry of Food. One of our support was basically development of food baskets. So by food baskets, what I mean essentially is that we supported different state governments and the government of India in developing their own contextualized and state-specific food baskets.
Mm-hmm.
A food basket is basically, say, suppose if you are to provide food aid to any of the beneficiaries or your people. So what is that ideal food ration, or what is that ideal, food entitlement that you would give to your people? Like, what is that basket of food grains that you would give to your people? So that is when the World Food Program brought some of its global expertise on food aid in emergencies and developed some of these food baskets for at the different state levels as well and at the national level as well. So that is number one. The other aspect on technical assistance what we did was that especially on school feeding, because we have school feeding is a very important area for the World Food Program, wherein we developed guidelines for the Ministry of Human Resource Development as to whenever the schools reopen, so how are they going to operationalize the midday meal scheme, or what are those precautions that you need to take during the reopening of the schools as well. So that is something which we developed. And then also on the policy advocacy part, that's the second aspect where we help the government of India. We basically also work along with a lot of organizations such as UNICEF, ISPRI, and where we came up with basically blogs on the importance of school feeding and how basically it is important to continue your school feeding program during the COVID-19 scenario. And blogs or these articles were published initially during the lockdown situation, wherein most of the states had actually not started performing or did not started implementing the midday as per the guidances issued by the Ministry of Human Resource Development. So re-emphasizing some of these issues and also re-emphasizing on the fact that how important is the school where we advocated for. Then in collaboration with UNICEF, the World Health Organization, we developed guidances basically for ensuring adequate nutrition support during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what this essentially is that, suppose if you're an NGO or if you're a community-based organization, and this is also apart from the food basket activity. This is basically a guidance for NGOs wherein you would give what is it that you would provide food aid at the local level. I mean, not just through the governments, but also through general people as well. If you're providing, say, food aid to the people in the urban slums, or say you're providing food aid in the rural areas. So what is it that you will provide, and how do you also take into factor, or how do you consider the regulations also and the acts regarding, say some of them, like Infant Milk Substitute Act. Now, as per the Infant Milk Substitute Act, you're not supposed to donate milk powders or substitutes to breast milk in any form. So that is when we re-emphasize some of these guidances or some of these acts through the guidance booklets or the documents that we came up with in joint publications with UNICEF. Then there was also a joint statement which was issued by the heads of agencies at the World Food Program, at UNICEF, at World Health Organization, basically talking about what is it that the government of India should do, especially for improving the food and nutrition scenario in its population. And it came up with 6-point recommendations. The other aspect where World Food Program also came in, or where we supported the government of India, was basically on capacity building or capacity development. We work with a lot of people from the private sector, people from the government sector, on building their capacities, especially on food safety hygiene, especially during COVID. Then talking about how would you distribute food to the beneficiaries if you're an NGO and something of that sort. And then basically raising importance of the health and wellness, especially during COVID. How could you maintain your basic health and wellness during COVID scenario, which also includes the aspect of mental wellness also. This was organized in collaboration with the Ministry of Ayush and ASSOCHAM. Then we also basically formed guidances on how do you ensure safe food delivery in the community kitchen, like especially during the lockdown scenario, in the initial part of it, wherein a lot of migration was happening. A lot of state governments set up the community kitchen or community-based kitchen, which would basically cook food at their own level and provide to the migrant laborers. We also form guidance for these community kitchens as how could you basically maintain essential food safety and hygiene while cooking food for people, and what is the basic food that you can use during to provide which provides good nutritional benefit to these migrant laborers as well, or the migrant people who are migrants. Then along with the state government of West Bengal, because West Bengal also went through the cyclone Amphan during that time. So we also organized to make where some of the government beneficiaries and NGOs working on the ground level in West Bengal on awareness on food security and nutrition, and how could you improve that situation during COVID, and what are the basic precautions you could take, and so on and so forth. And then there's also an international body, which is basically the SPEAR organization, which basically develops standards for food and nutrition security during emergency. So they have an arm in India. So along with SPEAR India, along with the HCF Foundation, we conducted sensitization sessions on food security and nutrition, along with different community-based organizations, NGOs, and so on and so forth. And then the other aspect which we supported the government was especially NITI Aayog and the MHRD and WCD, was basically tracking some of the government responses or the state government responses on MDM and ICDM. So right from the beginning of lockdown, we've also been tracking how different state governments have been performing on, say, implementing the midday meal scheme or implementing the ICD scheme. Because again, the Anganwadi were closed or the schools were closed. So how would you ensure delivery? So tracking some of these responses by the state government, that whether delivery is actually happening on the ground, if it is happening, how it is happening, or if food is not being provided, what is it that is being provided? Are people providing the cash entitlements or so? So that was kind of something which we tracked right from the beginning of the lockdown, and even now we are doing that. Then the other aspect where we worked on was basically to enhance awareness among workers and communities. We developed a set of videos on, one was basically around food safety and hygiene, that and these are easily available on our official YouTube channel as well, wherein basically it talked about elements and aspects of COVID-19. There were different issues which we faced during the COVID-19 scenario. One of the videos was basically targeted on maintaining health and nutrition for all people. It may be me, you, and people who are working, who are in the field, and people across rural and urban areas. So how could you maintain health and nutrition during the lockdown, and especially for pregnant women? What is it that you could look after? And these were published in Hindi, Malayalam, Odia language, and a lot of regional languages as well. Then maintaining gender balance in household chores. So what happened with the lockdown, again, you would see is that husband and wife started working from household, and work from home was a normal scenario. So how you could maintain gender balance during most of your household chores, and as a male or as a female, what could you contribute? So there's a very nice video that we've developed. Then the other issue which we also faced during lockdown was rise in the cases of domestic violence. So we made an effort to address the issue of domestic violence. And when I talk about stigma, you can also see that a lot of COVID warriors, or say our frontline workers who were serving to people during the COVID times, and say nurses and doctors and so. So a lot of them face stigma from the societies and houses wherein you would see that the rentals would harass them or so. So we came up with videos which basically talked about these are our own people, they are serving to us only, and we came up with a general message that it is for our own benefit that they are working, and they're also in their own stress and they're risking their own lives. So the other video was basically around infant and young child feeding during COVID-19 scenario as well. So that has been done. And among the last aspect wherein WFP has come into work or where we are providing support to the government is that currently our work under progress in Varanasi, where we have presence and field level presence, and the state of Uttar Pradesh basically, we are providing fortified rice on the ground through the PDS scheme. Basically, the government rice which is provided to the people, we are fortifying that rice and then we are distributing to the people there in one block. So this is a work in progress, and we expect to start this distribution soon by, say, next month or so. At least the objective is that with fortified rice, you will provide nutritional benefit to people, especially if they are not getting adequate nutrition during the COVID scenario. Fortified food will at least ensure that particular bit of it. And the second one is also, we are working with the government of Uttar Pradesh and government of Odisha to the Women's Self-Help Group or the Ministry Department of State Rural Livelihood Mission to basically help them set up decentralized take-home ration production units. And by decentralized, what I mean is that at the local level, on the block level, or at the village level, we set up a unit for production of take-home ration, which will be controlled by a women's self-help group on the ground. So it acts as a source of livelihood, and it also acts as a source of nutrition for the community. So that is a work in progress, and we hope to start this particular aspect from September onwards as well. And this will be done statewide in Uttar Pradesh, which is one of the states which is worst affected, or you could say, which has a large population, and it's one of the most vulnerable states in form of nutrition as well. So, yeah. So those are the aspects where we are providing work, or we are providing support to the government.
That's great to know the kind of work WFP is doing, and the videos that you mentioned, they really sound interesting. So I'd recommend our listeners to certainly check them out. So wrapping up, I would like to ask you, what should be the long-term measures or policy actions to address such shocks in food security? As you mentioned before, like when the pandemic hit our country, there was panic everywhere. So the states were clueless as to how to act to this sudden crisis. So what do you think should be in place to address such shocks in the future?
So as I said that despite, they say the national level guidelines being formed, or the national level guidelines being formed by the state government, states were very slow to implement, or they initially took some of their own sweet time to also implement some of the national level guidances on COVID. Especially to maintain food and nutrition security during COVID. So I would suggest that some of the recommendations that we would suggest as the World Food Program, as at least something from my end, is that the state government or the national government has done a lot of firstly, I would just like to, before I come on to the recommendation, I would like to highlight some of the achievements or the efforts that have been taken by the central government as well. Mm-hmm. They've come up with the One Nation, One Ration card, which basically allows you to interstate migration, and then, you can pick up your entitlements from different states, even if you're migrating to different states. Then they came up with the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. This is basically a scheme wherein starting from March onward, each beneficiary under the PDS scheme, or any people who would even not even have a ration card, they could approach a fair price shop and they could take 5 kilograms of food grains or cereal, basically rice or wheat, and 1 kilogram of pulses as per the whatever is available in the locally in the state. And so this is provided free of cost by the government. And this is a very important step and very important scheme launched by the government, basically to ensure food security, because you would see that people lost their jobs and basic income wasn't available with people. So such a scheme which basically provides free food to people has ensured, and universal food to people has ensured that at least people are now getting some of these entitlements and receiving the basic food grains at their own level. So that is what has been done. Now, to come to the part, or to come to your question on recommendation, I would suggest is number one, basically focus on gender and women empowerment, especially because when we talk about, say, in the long term or prevent some of these shocks, so gender and women empowerment is one of the key issues, wherein we talk about, say, women being at the center of your responses or any policy decisions that you make, be it even during the COVID scenario or even after the COVID scenario. And what I mean by gender empowerment, or even say women empowerment, is that women are enabled to make healthy choices, or when women are enabled to make healthy and nutritious choices, they have equal decision making in the household, and they basically are also supporting to ensure adequate food security for women, children, and most of the vulnerable households or vulnerable population as well. So that is number one. And one of the essential steps in ensuring women empowerment or say to improve gender situation is that if you basically work along with the women SHGs at the grassroots level. So what it will do is that it will also create jobs for the women. It will also ensure that they are creating a nutritious product for their own community. So that way it serves a two-way purpose of nutrition as well as livelihood, or you could say income in a way. The second aspect where you could focus on is community awareness or behavior change. Especially during COVID, you would have known that if you basically give them nutrition and health education and basically tell them about what are the best nutrition practices or how could you maintain health and hygiene at your own level. So number one, it enables people to make actions and decisions at their own level and slowly and gradually moving towards a behavior change pattern as well. And secondly, you also give them information about what are those foods which are locally available and which are nutritious, what are those traditional diets which are nutritious, what are those best practices, especially when I talk about feeding practices for children, what are those complementary feeding practices for children and how do you adhere to some of these recommendations at your own level and like basically providing food to the child even when the child is ill and some of those aspects. So these are something which you can make aware to the community and so that they are empowered in their own way to take actions at their own level, because you can't expect the government or state governments to take actions all the time. It is also the people who have to make a change at their own level and take actions at their own level. So that is number two. The number three action is also, which I would suggest, is that ensuring supply of, say, supplementation or folic acid or iron and folic acid supplementation or vitamin A supplementation or, say, factors such as deworming, and also ensuring supply of fortified foods as well. So fortified foods is basically the food that we regularly consume, which is, say, salt, milk, rice, wheat, and your oil. So you basically add your vitamins and minerals to some of these foods. And when you consume some of these foods, it basically ensures that you're getting your regular nutritional benefits as well. And currently, definitely the government of India has done a lot of progress on making or ensuring availability of fortified food. The government of India has a scheme on, say, fortified rice. It's the oil that we consume is basically fortified oil and all of that. So, there is a lot of steps that have been taken by the government. But especially during COVID, what is more important is that whatever food that we are providing, if that is fortified, in a way it provides nutritional benefit also along with ensuring the food security of people. So these are some of my key recommendations I would suggest, which in the long term also, if you were to sustain the food and nutrition security, could help us in improving some of our nutrition scenario and keeping the trend of, say, India as a country has done a lot of progress in reduction of malnutrition, especially if we consider our previous surveys as well. We've done good improvement. To ensure that the COVID scenario does not impact our progress on nutrition or some of these indicators, some of these steps could be taken, which can then further the journey there.
Definitely. So as you pointed out, while the government will play its part of implementing policies and everything, community involvement is equally important. And I say that from a public health point of view. So definitely agree with that. And what we usually see is the tip of the iceberg. But thank you for showing us what is at the bottom of the iceberg as well, because there are a lot of logistical and operational problems that we don't really understand what the government goes through or international agencies like WFP or WHO go through. So thank you for providing interesting insights on this nutritional crisis that India is going through, and hopefully will come out with a successful stories. So thank you so much, Siddharth, for coming onto this podcast, and thank you so much, folks, for listening to All Things Policy.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app. ivmpodcast.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVMPodcasts on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. So it's been a really, really fun week this week. We've had a great episode with Anand Neelakantan on Cyrus Says. Anand was one of the writers of Bahubali and he's done some really, really fun stuff since that. Ashish Vidyarthi also had a really good episode on his show, Begin the Journey. Please do check that out. You do know Yuddha is back, right? Definitely check it out if you haven't. Yuddha is our show about Indian ancient warfare. It's hosted by Anirudh Kanisetti and Aditya Ramanathan. Really, really great show. You should check that out for sure. And I forgot. Rishikesh was on the network as well. He was on Absolutely Right with Aditi Surana. Do definitely check that out. With that, hope to see you next week.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.